I'm coming clean here. As much as I try to advocate for free and accessible means of music production, I'm not immune to the trappings of desiring to buy new things all the time. I think a lot of musicians have this issue, especially electronic musicians. When we see something new, we like to start imagining all of the cool new things that we could do with it. We can rationalize the purchases as something that can help our careers, our art. And of course, buying things is a lot easier than putting in the work sometimes. But I'm not hating on this. Again, I am not immune to this. And if you have the money and if it brings you joy, it's not an issue. As long as we continue to remind ourselves that there's a limit to how good we're going to get by just buying things. All this preamble in service of the fact that I got kind of obsessed last week with this Serge Resonant EQ. I've talked about Buchla synthesizers a bit before. I've talked about Moog synthesizers. The Serge Synthesizer is another modular music system developed by Serge Resonant, but some of these designs and circuits have also been ported over to Eurorack and other formats. Now, long story short, I didn't buy this. I still kind of want it, but $400 was a bit too much for an impulse buy. Why did I get so interested in this resonant equalizer? Well, it successfully appealed to a few things that I've been interested in exploring lately. One is about the choice of frequencies for this EQ. As an EQ, this is going to boost or attenuate certain bandwidths. But in his design of this resonant EQ, Serge chose frequencies that weren't even multiples of each other, which would be harmonics. Instead, he chose frequencies that are major sevenths apart. Why is that interesting? Well, okay, if your frequencies are multiples of each other, your EQ may end up sounding like it's in a key if you boost a bunch of harmonics of a given note. If they're major sevenths away, you're creating a resonance more like acoustic instruments that are emphasizing different frequencies based on their physical structure. In addition, I'm interested in this nonlinear response of the controls. Reading from the advertising copy here, when the knobs are positioned between 9 and 3 o'clock, up to 12 decibels of boost or cut is set at the band. Okay, so that's boosting the band. If the knob is set beyond the 3 o'clock position, the band will become resonant, simulating the natural resonance of acoustic instrument format structures. Below the 9 o'clock position, increased band rejection is achieved. So two things here. One is that what these knobs do isn't entirely linear. And secondly, that there's this parametric combination going on, that two parameters are being affected at the same time, the boost and the resonance. Finally, if you've been watching any of my recent videos, you know that I'm a little obsessed with feedback at the moment, and this random source, Serge Resonant EQ, has a feedback control on it. But as I said before, I'm not sponsored by anybody, nobody's paying me to make these videos, so I'm not telling you to go out and buy one of these. Instead, let's see what we can do in Reaktor to take some of these ideas. To be very, very clear, I'm not trying to make a digital model of the Serge Resonant EQ. I don't have one, I haven't even touched one of these before. Maybe someone far more clever than me can look at the schematic of this and rebuild it perfectly in Reaktor Core. What I'm going to do is just take inspiration from the idea of this module and make something that maybe does some of the same cool things. If that sounds good, let's crack open Reaktor. Alright, so our main building block here is going to be this Peak EQ FM. So just to glance at that real quick. Equalizer with peak bell-shaped characteristics with inputs for logarithmic and linear control. We're not going to use the logarithmic one, we're just going to use the linear one. Of the corner frequency, resonance, Q factor bandwidth, res, and boost cut. So it has distinct controls for resonance and boost. In this case, the boost is that. It's how many decibels we're boosting at the center frequency of this bell-shaped curve. The center frequency will be determined by, in our case, this F that we set. And what the resonance is doing here is it's how narrow that bandwidth is. So once again, we want to have a little bit of a funky nonlinear control here. So we're going to do something a little bit advanced rather than just creating controls for both of these. Let's quickly just filter some noise. Noise oscillator. I'm going to create a constant for this. I'm going to turn my volume down because it will probably be loud. Okay, now I'm going to slowly bring that volume up. All right, that sounds like white noise to me. Create control, create control. Let's clean up this panel. So we're going to use constants for our center frequencies. You might remember that one of the center frequencies on that Res EQ was 777. That's the easiest one to remember. So 777 hertz. Okay, let's change this boost. boosting around 777 hertz, 20 decibels, cutting 20 decibels around 777 hertz. Okay, now listen what happens with this resonance. Here comes the resonance. What's happening is there's a narrowing of that bell curve. When I turn it up, you can really hear that one single frequency ringing. Hey, what's that single frequency? It's going to be 777 hertz, right? As opposed to when the resonance is down, it's wide. Okay, all that said, in order for us to hear this resonant EQ do anything, we need to have something that it's going to filter. So let's do a couple things first. I'm actually just going to delete this. We'll come back to it in a second. Those of you who watched these videos before know that I'm usually delete all these inputs here, but actually today I'm going to leave one because I'm going to do something that I haven't done before, but maybe you already know how to do. Let me just show you real quick. I'm going to go up here to the play bar and I'm going to select a file with the magnifying glass. What I want is on my desktop. Okay, play that and check this out. Listen to my resonant equalizer. Let's loop it. Listen to my resonant equalizer. Listen to my resonant equalizer. Listen to my resonant equalizer. Okay, so I haven't done that before, but basically what I'm doing is I'm taking a file, putting it up here, and then what happens is it goes to that input. Now, what I'll do is let me actually make a switch here, which is going to let me choose between different inputs. So we'll do this one. Bank. Let's actually bring our noise back. We'll just have the noise constantly going. Bank. Rename this one noise. And then let's also put in a sawtooth oscillator with a note pitch and a gate MIDI controls, right? So just a simple oscillator that we can control. Saw. Call this one sound source. And there we go. And so just to show what this does, again, we have no resonant equalizer yet. Let's set that sound source to be noise. Saw. Again, saw doesn't do anything until I play a key. Okay, and then we can set it to be in. Listen to my resonant equalizer. Okay, and so we have a number of different sound sources that we can now run into our resonant filter to test different things. As always, I didn't put a sine wave here because I wanted to send a whole bunch of different complex things. In this case, speech, noise, and then that sawtooth. One other thing I'm going to do real quick to get myself set up is I will run over to get this blocks oscilloscope. Once again, I'd go through where this is, but it's in different places on different computers. I have it, again, in this globe thing, block space utilities, util-scope. If you installed Reaktor from a different version, it'll be in a different place. Sawtooth. Noise. In. Listen to my resonant. Okay, so now we're all set up to make our resonant equalizer. So let's go new macro, and let's call this resonant. Did I spell that right? I certainly did not. Resonant. Resonant EQ. All right, we're gonna need an input. We're gonna need an output. And this is gonna go in here, and these are gonna go here. Clean this up a bit. Okay, so let's do a macro here within a macro. And what I want to do is I want to have a macro for each frequency of the resonant EQ, because I'm going to build the controls and that EQ filter into each one. Once again, in here, in, out. And then our main idea here is built-in module, filter, peak EQ FM. Once again, I want to make it once and then duplicate it out. So let's make it for a single frequency. The lowest frequency, I believe, is 29. I'm gonna check, of course. I'm gonna look before we do this properly. But once again, I remember that 777, and it's probably best to not start with the 29 because that's very, very low, right? And so if you're watching on headphones, your headphones might not be able to reproduce it. If we're playing back a recorded sample, there might not be any frequencies that are actually happening down there. If I play a sawtooth wave with a fundamental that's above 29 hertz, we're not gonna get anything either. I'm not gonna touch this P because we're not working logarithmically today. And then let's create our controls here and here for now. Okay, let's clean up our panel just so we get a better idea of what's going on. Okay, there's our sound source. That's not inside the Resonant EQ macro. Here's our macro, which is just called macro, which, as you know, is a terrible name for it. Let's call this macro 777 because we'll name it what the frequency is. And just for now, in, bink, out, bink. Okay, let's check this out. Switch it to the, let's switch to the noise. Lock it down. Okay, let's try boosting. Okay, this is working fine, but look how it's clipping, and this makes perfect sense, right? We're bringing in something at the maximum volume, and then we're adding boost and resonance to it, so of course it's going to clip. So one of the first things that we'll do here is let's add create control, and this will be our output attenuation, and then, it's not going to hurt to have it on the input too. Again, multiply. So what we're doing is we're just multiplying by values between 0 and 1, and since the values are between 0 and 1, they're attenuators, right? Create control, in, put. Let's even call that other one output on second thoughts. Clean it up here. Clean up on the panel. We'll lock it down. Noise. Sawtooth. Hey, there's our regular old sawtooth. Output all the way up. Add some boost. Okay, neat. So this is a single band resonant EQ right now. So that's pretty much what we want. But let's now make this more interesting, and like the Serge Resonant EQ, let's just have one knob. Now, let's think a little bit about this. This boost is the boost in decibels, -20 to 20. That's an okay range. I think when I was practicing this, I might have switched it up to 24. But once again, if we go back to the marketing copy of this, when the knobs are in the middle position, the response of the main EQ output is flat. When the knobs are positioned between 9 and 3, up to 12 decibels of boost or cut is set. If the knob is set beyond the 3 o'clock, the band will become resonant. Okay, so let's think about that. The idea is when it's at 9 and 3, then it's at 12. That's pretty close. Well, it's 13, but you know what? I'm not going to stress about that. Once again, we're not trying to model this exactly. We're just trying to steal its ideas. But what we want is when we go beyond that boost, right? When we go beyond that 12, that 3 o'clock, we want this resonance to kick in. So let's do a little bit of funny math. It's not that funny. But instead of making an individual control for the resonance, I'm going to have this boost knob, which actually, let me go here. The view of this knob, I'm going to turn off it called boost because it's not boost anymore. It's just the knob for 777. And I'm also going to hide the value there. Okay, so now it's just a knob under 777. Okay, so we want it to just boost and cut up until when it's about 12 here, right? So when we said that was, okay, 3, 9 and 3 there. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the absolute value. Built-in module, math, rectify. So that means it doesn't care if it's positive or negative, because let's think about this. When you turn it down beyond this point, you want the resonance to go up, right? And when you turn it up beyond this point, you also want the resonance to go up. It's not that the resonance goes down once you go too low, right? So it sort of inverts itself. So once again, around here is about -12 to -20. Up here, it's 12 to 20. Okay, so far so good. The next thing that I'm going to do is subtract 12. So, okay, let's think about that. Because up to 12, right, we don't want this going anywhere. So up till this point, we don't want the resonance to move at all. Okay, well, the problem is, of course, now, right, let me show you. Okay, so when we're here, the resonance is 0, and as we turn up here, the resonance is going to go up. The problem we have right now is, as I go down to here, it's going to be negative numbers. So how do we deal with that? Well, it's not the prettiest way to do it, but let's clip those values. So I'm going to take this, run that, the numbers that are coming off that knob into the clipper. We'll make the minimum 0. I'm going to need more space here. We'll make the maximum. Well, we don't really need this, but let's think about this knob, right? This knob goes all the way up to 20, -20, right? So, okay. We do the absolute value of that. So again, 0 up to 12, right? We subtract 12, it can't go below 0, so it's 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then we get here to 12. And then as we go up beyond that, the maximum is going to be 20 minus 12, so that's going to be 8. Okay. So now the last thing we need to do is scale this a little bit. Okay, so right now, the resonance wants a number between 0 and 1, or 0.98 really. If it's 1, it'll self-resonate. And so we know that right now, from here to here, that resonance, if I just wired this up, it's going to go from 0 to 8. We could divide that by 8, but then it'll still get up to self-resonance at the top there. So let's do a quick bit of math. We'll do 0.98 divided by 8. It gives us 0.1225, all right? Math, multiply, create constant, 0.1225. Did I do it right? I don't know. Well, let's find out. Oh, I forgot something. This is because the clipper is audio, right? And so you need an A to E. So the clipper, see how this is white here? That means it's audio rate, not control rate. Okay, so now we're back to control. Okay, let's see how we did. Equalizer. Listen to my resonant 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 equalizer. Still clipping a little bit there. Let's tweak these numbers a little bit. I want to go to my boost. I'm going to change it so it goes up from -24 to 24. We're going to have to redo our math a little bit here. So that means that, again, still -12, because 12 dB is how much clean gain it has. And then once it goes beyond 12, it's going to go 12 beyond that. And since we're up to 12 here, we need to do 0.98 divided by 12. Oh, good gracious. 0.0816. 0.0816. And the other thing we want to make sure on this boost is let's make the step size 0.1 or even 0.05, right? We need a little bit of detail in here. Whoops, I'm messing with the input. I should be messing with the knob here. All right. I think this is sounding pretty good. So again, boost is negative 24 to 24. That goes in here, negative 24 to 24. Okay, negative 24 to 24, we absolute value that, so we get 0 to 24. We subtract 12, so that gives us negative 12 to 12, right, coming out of here. But then we say, we don't care about it when it's below 0. Just as if it's below 0, it just becomes 0. And then that goes to 12. Okay, we got to switch that back because the clipper was audio rate. And then we change that to be a range that's going from 0 to 0.98. But also, that's a nonlinear response. Again, as long as it's in this range here, it's 0, right? The resonance is 0. The boost changes here, but the resonance doesn't change. And then it's only when we go beyond here that that resonance kicks in. Remember, the resonance is narrowing the band of this filter. This might even be too much. I might do 0.075. And so that way we don't get all the way up to 0.98. That might be too much resonance. That gives us 0.9. That might be a little bit better. That seems a little bit more fun and musical. Okay, so what do we do now? We make a whole bunch of them. Now, the Serge Resonant EQ has 10, so let's do it. 1, 3, 4, 5, 10. Now, I'm running this in series, and actually, I was initially a little bit worried about putting them in series, but I'll show you in a second how I think it actually doesn't introduce any issues in terms of, I was worried that it would be changing the phase of frequencies that aren't filtered. Okay, let's see if I can remember these. 21, I'm going to go up from the bottom. Nope, I did it wrong from the get-go. It's 29, 61, 115, 218, 411, 1.5K, 2.8K, 5.2K, 11K. Okay, well, I've just changed the names of the macros, but I haven't done anything in here. So now we need to go in all of these and set their frequencies to be the right one. 29, 61, 115, 218, 411. That one's going to be right. 1500, right? Because it's 1500K. 2800. 5200. 1100. Right? Because that's 11,000. All right. Let's clean up our panel. I'm definitely going to fast motion this part of the video in the edit. Okay, there we go. Lock it down. Let's double click on all of these. And the reason this is working is because the default of this knob, all of these knobs is set to 0. And so if I double click on them, it'll reset them to their default. Okay. Well, let's play some keys and see if we did blow up our audio. Oh no, it's still working. So check this out. Even though it's going through all these filters, and they're set at 0, even though it's going through all of them, it still looks like a sawtooth wave, right? We can even do this. Let's add a switch real quick. We'll call the switch bypass, right? And so then in to there, so bypass, that would be the bypass on. We'll run the output to here, holding down command, call this off to the output. So again, it literally bypasses that filter. Let's put that in a nice place. I should have done that before I cleaned up my panel here. Oh, I did it properly. Bypass, bing. These friends over a hair. Lock it down. Okay, bypass on. It looks the same, right? I think that's pretty good. Okay, well now let's start messing with the EQ. Once again, we're doing a lot of clipping. Bypass. That's 218. Okay, so this is kind of clipping out of control because of the resonance. Here's what I'm gonna do, and this will actually ruin the fact that when we bypass it, there's no change, but I wanna add a saturator here. This is a real simple module that as numbers get higher, it rounds them off. So I talked about tan H before as a mathematical idea, and so as things get louder and louder, it rounds them off. So if I now set my output to be 0.5 with this saturator in it, I shouldn't clip anymore, right? And you can see that saturator is adding a little bit of distortion in there. One of the things that's really interesting here now is that you'll see the sawtooth wave, the waveform looks completely different across its range. So here, let's bypass for a second, right? Sawtooth wave low, sawtooth wave high. It's the same thing, only faster. But here, sawtooth wave low, sawtooth wave high. Those are very different waveforms now. And that's because, again, this resonant EQ is emphasizing different frequencies in the same way that the body of a musical instrument does. The waveform of a violin is not the same across the instrument because that body resonates those frequencies in different ways. Equalizer. Listen to my resonant 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 equalizer. Okay, that's pretty cool. Now, the last thing that the random source version of this resonant EQ has is that feedback. Now, feedback will never work the same way in digital that it does in analog. I don't want to go into it right now, but because of the way DSP works, digital signal processing, you can't actually process an infinite number of samples simultaneously. But anyway, I've already said more than I wanted to. So I'm gonna make something that sounds kind of okay, totally acknowledging that there's no way that I can capture the beauty of that. Let's make a macro for this, and let's call it feedback. Okay. In, out. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the output from the saturator, bink, and then we're gonna take it and we're gonna add it to the signal that's feeding back into the EQ. Okay, I don't have anything in this feedback yet, but there it is, bink. Okay, now the first thing we wanna do is we need an attenuation control on this feedback, because again, it'll just blow everything up immediately. So let's just create a control here. Let's call this amount, right? Because we already have it inside a macro called feedback, so we don't need it to be called feedback. Where'd that go? There it is, great. Okay, and we'll never want to feedback 1. Let's just make the maximum of this 0.5. Okay, so now what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to add a few things. One is, if this were reality, we could feed things back immediately, but let's add a single delay in here. I messed with this and I just end up creating a constant of 3. And so that's 3 milliseconds. So that's super short, but I found that that was pretty effective. And then the other thing that we need to do is have a low pass filter. And so actually I'm going to do it this way. Built-in module, filter, multi-HP low pass FM. And basically I need to roll off some of these high frequencies. Otherwise, when I invert things or when I mess with things, we just get these really high ultrasonic waveforms that don't add anything and just make a mess of things. So I'm going to create a constant for this one. We don't need any resonance. We don't need pitch control. I'm just going to set this at 9,000 hertz. So again, this is definitely going to color the sound as it's feeding back. It's rolling off everything. Oh, and this isn't even the filter. I got the wrong filter here. Sorry, I need one that has a better low pass. Filter. Multi-LP 4-pole, sorry. So once again, frequency is still 9,000. Output to there. And so we'll take this low pass and we'll run into there. I want to do one more thing though. Because if you look at the random source resonant EQ, there's a switch that lets you flip the phase. So multiply. So I'm going to take this low pass, right? And so all I need to do to flip the phase is multiply it by -1. But I need a switch. Phase. I think I should probably call that invert, but okay. Create constant. 1. So multiply by 1 if you have that selected. Duplicate. Multiply by -1. Phase. And so this is norm. I don't know if that's a great word for it. Invert. Okay, let's clean up that panel. Whoops. Ha 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 ha. I actually cranked the feedback. Give me 1 sec here. So, I mean, that's a great example of what the feedback does. It just blew itself up immediately. Actually, you know, I say blew itself up, but some nice sounds. Okay. Let's see how we do.
Equalizer. Listen to my resonant equalizer.
Inverted phase.
Listen to my resonant equalizer. Listen
Okay,
to my
immediately blows
resonant
itself up. Let's dial these back
Listen to my resonant
to
equalizer.
unity here. Okay.
To my resonant equalizer. Listen to my resonant equalizer.
Okay.
Listen
Here we go.
to my resonant
A
equalizer.
little bit of 777.
Listen
Inverted.
to my resonant equalizer. Listen to my resonant equalizer.
There we go. We can hear that a little bit.
Listen to my resonant equalizer. Listen to my resonant equalizer.
Okay.
Listen to my
That's with
resonant
no feedback?
equalizer. Listen to my resonant equalizer. Listen to my resonant equalizer. Listen to my resonant equalizer. Listen to my
Let's turn it to
resonant
normal, not inverted.
equalizer. Listen to my resonant 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 equalizer. Listen to my resonant.
So I'm not playing anything in my song, it's just ringing. Maybe we can dial it back a hair. Okay, let's see how it goes. That's a pretty great sound. Hey, that's pretty good. Once again, I'm sure those of you who have the privilege of owning one of these Resonant EQs will definitely say, well, that's not actually how it sounds. And I believe that, especially in terms of this feedback. But hey, we've made something that's really nice. Now, I don't have my camera set up on my desk here, but I believe that a great final step would be getting a controller and mapping all these knobs to it, right? It's no fun to move these with a mouse. Oh, see how that blows up? Look at all that. That's all really, really high frequency stuff there. We're hearing some aliasing there, but once again, you know, this is one of the reasons why digital feedback will never work the same way as analog. I say that, but there's going to be someone in the comments who says, well, I've got a way to get it to work, and I would love to hear it. That one's almost like vowel sounds, right? All right, I guess I'm gonna leave it there. Hey, we made something that's pretty cool. One final thing to do, you might click up there on your Resonant EQ, and then you can go save macro as, and then you could save this to your desktop or your Reaktor folder and bring this into other ensembles. Boy, I've made kind of a boring instrument here. You could probably make something way better than that. Maybe you've got a cool wavetable synth that this could be applied to. Maybe you've already got a sampling instrument that this could be a great final touch to. Or maybe you just have a whole bunch of different waveforms added together in a more interesting way than I have. Play with it and let me know what you come up with.